Welcome back to my channel. My name is Rabbi Cass. I'm a Sofer in Muncie, New York. You can find me online at sofercenter.com. Question I get asked all the time, especially after I sell a pair of tefillin, is what do I need to do to make sure that this tefillin will last me my entire life? Tips and tricks on how to properly care for the tefillin. So that's what today's video we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be showing you some samples, and I'm going to be telling you a lot to help you make sure that your tefillin lasts you a lifetime. So the first thing, and I usually even do this before people leave the office with the tefillin, is to encourage them very much to make sure your name and your phone number are on the tefillin. So this is my own tefillin here. I'm showing you with my own tefillin. As you can see on the boxes, I have clearly my name and my phone number clearly there on the boxes. Now, it doesn't just stop over there. Today, with the fancy bags that a lot of people are making and getting, you do a name on the bag. So what I started recommending for people that buy tefillin from me and do the embroidery as well is to put a phone number and or email inside the bag. So look at my bag, for example, over here. You can see the inside of the lining of my bag. I have my phone number, I have my email. Actually, today I feel that emails are better than phone numbers. The phone numbers actually seem to change more often than emails. So email, you can always set up a forwarding address. It's just easier, even if you dump the email at some point down the road, you can always set it up as a forwarding email. It doesn't cost anything. It's easy to do. So phone number is great. Email is great. It should be embroidered in the bag. It should be on the tefillin boxes. Some way to identify. Putting in a business card inside the bag is good, but it can also fall out. Just relying on the people in the airport to be able to read your name in Hebrew and understand that it's Hebrew and somehow translate it and then somehow track you down doesn't always work. Today, actually, we have with a WhatsApp, you see on the WhatsApp groups, a picture of a pair of tefillin with the name in Hebrew, found in a taxi cab in Manhattan. Share on all your groups. Sometimes you have success with that, sometimes you don't. I don't suggest relying on it. I get stories all the time. People call me up. My tefillin were stolen out of a car, or not stolen. That's another thing we're going to talk about in a second. I left them in the airport. They got lost, and I don't have any tefillin, and then tefillin are unfortunately never heard of again. So first thing when it comes to properly taking care of your tefillin is it's easy to do. Print your name on a sticker, put it on the tefillin boxes. If you're ordering a bag, put your name on it, and just make sure that the tefillin are always easily identifiable for anybody that doesn't know you firsthand, that can't read your name. That's the first thing. So the second thing is, when you're traveling with your tefillin, always keep your tefillin as close as possible to you. If you're on a bus, don't put the tefillin down on the seat next to you, because it could happen that you could rush off to your stop and by mistake leave the tefillin on the seat. Keep the tefillin with you, hold it on, keep it on your shoulder. Today they have bags with shoulder straps. Don't leave the tefillin. Just don't put them down, and that way you'll never have a chance, so to speak, an opportunity for them to be forgotten. When you travel with them on a plane, always take them with you, carry on, don't put them underneath the plane. These are just different things that you can do to make sure that the tefillin don't get misplaced or lost. Even if you're by yourself in the airport, you can take the tefillin, if it's double wrapped and it's in a bag, you can take them into the bathroom. Today's bathrooms don't have the same halachas as bathrooms, outhouses back in the day. So as long as the tefillin's double wrapped and it's in another wrapping which is not dedicated for the tefillin, then you would be permitted to take the tefillin into the bathroom with you. It's a better option than leaving them in an unwatched terminal. You know why? Because a lot of times the bags are very decorative and nice, and that leads me to the next thing which I want to talk about, is leaving the tefillin anywhere, which could lead it to get stolen as well, in the car or in shul. I have stories, people come, tefillin, their car was broken into, the tefillin was stolen. Even in shul, sometimes tefillin are borrowed, and then things happen. Never leave your tefillin out in plain sight. Always, if you have to leave them somewhere where they're not locked up, in a shul, make sure you put it in a cubby. I recommend, taking the necessary precautions, because all too often, unfortunately, I heard these stories where tefillin just get misplaced, or somebody moves them, and they're never found again. if you have to leave your tefillin in the car, I don't recommend it, especially in the winter, in the summer, when there's extreme temperatures on the outside. I do find that heat will damage the tefillin faster than cold. So for example, if tefillin is subject to extreme temperature of heat, it'll ruin the tefillin much faster than being in sub-zero temperatures. But with that being said, it's not healthy for the tefillin in either situation, because when you subject the klaf and the tefillin, the Batim, to extreme temperatures, what it does is it either dries out the klaf and the parashias, or gets them very moist and very humid, and that's not good for the tefillin. I have had a tefillin where somebody once had the tefillin left in the car for an extended period of time, and he brought them in for me to check them, and the parashias, the ink actually, I don't want to say melted, I don't know if melted is the right word, but it got so hot that it got stuck to the klaf, and the letters basically were broken. So that's what'll happen with the heat. Cold also will eventually damage the tefillin. So if you do have to leave the tefillin in the car, which I don't recommend, what you should do is get a cooler. You can get like a 10-quart cooler or whatever, or some they have smaller coolers. Now you don't put ice or ice pack in the cooler. The point of the cooler is just that if you put if you have to keep the tefillin in the car, then in the morning the temperature is usually cooler. If you put the tefillin in the cooler while it's morning, and then you close it, and in the middle of the day the sun shining on it, the car tends to get very hot. The cooler will slow down the transfer of the temperature from the inside the car to the actual tefillin. And even if you don't have the cooler, put the tefillin in a part of the car which is not going to be, not on the dashboard obviously, but on a part of the car which is lower down, which tends to keep a cooler temperature. Or the trunk would be also a very good option. But whatever you do, make sure it's not visible. That way nobody is tempted to break in for something which looks like what do we keep in velvet bags or nice leather bags, usually very nice expensive things, and they are. Unfortunately, to the people who steal them, usually it's nothing that they really want. It just, you hear stories sometimes tefillin are stolen and then they're found in a dumpster. So you don't want that to happen to the tefillin. So get your name on the tefillin, be smart, don't leave it in places where people might move it by mistake or borrow it, or in places where it might actually just get taken. So the next thing I want to talk about is where you keep your tefillin. I remember through my yeshiva years, there was a couple of instances where boys' tefillins got ruined. One was there was a bacher who kept his tefillin by the window. This was during a summer, and one time the window, it was like a ledge by the window, and there was he kept his tefillin by the window, and it was hot, the windows were open, and one day the window was left open, and then the night it rained, and his tefillin were basically in the morning when we came into the room, to the shul, to daven, his tefillin were sitting in a puddle of water. So you have to think where you're putting the tefillin. Not near a window, for two reasons. One, it can get wet. Two, the sun will definitely shine on it, and that could also cause damage if it gets too hot from the sun. So keep that in mind. I have a pair of tefillin here where I got a couple of years ago. There was a camp, they went on an overnight, and a couple of boys left the tefillin on a picnic table, and they had, unfortunately, either they forgot it there or they didn't think of why it would be a problem, and it rained. And I'll show you now 2 pairs of tefillin that went through the rain. Both of these tefillin went through the same rain. Now, these are boxes made different ways. If you watch my video, I'll put a link in the description for the different types of Batim. These will be Batim which are pshutim, which are simple Batim, they're thinner, and these would be gasos, which are the thicker skin, which obviously you could see it held out a lot better from the rain. Now, the difference between both of these boxes are ruined, but this one, the parashias that was inside, actually was salvageable. I just had to provide them with new boxes, versus the boy who had this tefillin had to get an entire new pair of tefillin. So that's the advantage of the thicker boxes versus the thinner boxes. If you watch that video, you'll get a better understanding. But the point is, the tefillin were left in a silly place, and nobody was thinking about it, and it rained, and the tefillin got ruined. So just realize all these things. Water is not good for tefillin. When you're in shul, and by me always, if somebody comes down and sits next to me with a coffee all the way to the top, just like waiting for an accident to happen, I'll move tables, because I know that if a coffee spills over and falls on my tefillin, I'll have a serious problem. So you have to just use use common sense and realize, you don't want the tefillin to get wet. Another thing is if somebody takes a shower in the morning, or they go swimming, or if you're careful to go to the mikveh every single morning, very important when you come to davening to put on your tefillin, make sure your hair is dry, because the wetness from the pool or the shower or the mikveh on the head tefillin will eventually ruin the bottom of the tefillin. Same way as sweat will. If somebody sweats a lot, if you tend to sweat a lot, what'll happen is eventually you'll wear out the bottom of the tefillin will eventually get warped, and it'll do like, I'm going to show you here a sample of a tefillin that got ruined from sweat. This is a tefillin that somebody was sweating, and you can see how the sides kind of pulled down, and also here it kind of curves in. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but this is what'll happen from too much sweat or from putting on tefillin while your head is wet. So what do you have to do? Make sure you dry your hair really well. If you sweat in your tefillin, then you have to make sure to, after you take off your tefillin, leave it out for a couple of minutes. Maybe take off your tefillin a couple minutes early and daven, the end part of davening. It doesn't have to be, you said, with the tefillin on. That way you give your chance for your tefillin to air out a few minutes, that you're not putting it away and wrapping it and putting it in the bag, that it should be moist the entire day. Another thing you could do is, I'll show you that, well, you can get, like when you buy a new leather bag or shoes, they have like the dry packs inside over there. So you could also, if you tend to sweat a lot, what you could do is you could put 1 or 2 of those dry packs inside your tefillin bag, which will help absorb some of the moisture in the tefillin, and that will definitely help. Some of the boxes that they make today, let's see if I have an example. Yes. Some of the boxes that you find today for the tefillin, they have a mirror inside the hand box, and the reason for that is in order for it to be convenient to check the tefillin to make sure that they're straight. The problem with that is that on the bottom of the tefillin you have what's called air vents. The reason why you have those air vents is to allow the tefillin to breathe, and if there is any moisture on the tefillin, that it should allow it to go out. By having the mirror on the tefillin, it actually defeats the purpose. So you have to try to get boxes that don't have the mirror in them, and also look out, because a lot of Sofer, they put stickers on the tefillin, or the companies that make the boxes, they put stickers on the tefillin which covers over the air vents. You have to make sure that those air vents are always open. If I get a pair of tefillin to check and the air vents are closed with a sticker or something, I'm always popping them open, because it's important for the tefillin to be able to breathe, and if they're moist, it should be able to dry out. When you're davening in shul, don't stand near a wall, don't daven near a bookcase. If it hasn't happened to you yet, if you're davening in these tight quarters, you bend down, it's easy to knock the tefillin into a wall, it's easy to knock the tefillin into a bookcase, so be careful, give yourself some clearance, give yourself some room. When you're handling the tefillin, always handle it over a table or over a surface. That way, if chas v'shalom, you lose your grip on the tefillin and they fall, they're not going to fall all the way down to the floor. They'll be, the table or whatever you're holding the tefillin over will break the fall. And also, if you tend to wear a hat while you wear the tefillin, be careful that the tefillin, the cap or the hat that you're wearing doesn't rub on the top of the tefillin shalosh, because that could also rub off the paint of the tefillin. The tefillin Shel Yad has a plastic on it. This plastic is to protect the corners of the tefillin. When you're wearing the tefillin on your hand and you cover it with your sleeve, that could eventually dull the corners of the tefillin. This plastic piece is very important. I know a lot of times it falls off. If it does, then what you need to do is you have to get a piece of felt or anything to, I have it here. They make a sticker sheets of felt, and I have it in the office. I give it out for anybody who needs. If you're in Muncie, you can come by the office. I'll do it for you free of charge. Let me show you exactly what it is, actually. Give me a second. So this is what I'm talking about. So it's just a felt, and it has a sticker back. And you simply just cut off a piece, and then you'll stick it onto the inside of the tefillin here, and that'll make this plastic cover fit on just nice and snug, so it won't fall off. A lot of times people, they get frustrated and annoyed when this plastic piece falls off, and they just take it off the first thing when they take out the tefillin. They take it off, but then what happens is eventually the corners of the tefillin will get ruined. So it is important to have this on, and make sure you fit it. It should be snug and keep it on. The reason why it has the hole on the top over here is in order for you to be able to kiss the tefillin on the appropriate places during davening, and the reason it has a cutout over here for the knot to touch the Retzuos to touch the box, so there's no problem with keeping this on. This is supposed to stay on the entire time while you're wearing the tefillin. Okay, so another thing I want to touch on while we're talking about actually wearing the tefillin is when you wrap the Retzuos on your arm, be careful not to wrap it too tight. There are actually studies that have been done that suggest that by restricting the blood flow on the arm has certain health benefits, and maybe I'll make a video in the future of the health benefits to wearing tefillin. But the tighter you wrap the tefillin on your arm, the more wear and tear it makes on the straps. So for example, can you see this strap over here? Like, a second. Look how wide this strap is, and look how wide this one is. Can you see the difference? Now both of these Retzuos, both of these started out as the same width, which is roughly between 14 and 15 millimeters. Now it has to retain at least a width of 9 millimeters, and lechatchila 10, and according to some opinions 11 width millimeters this way for the Retzuos to be kosher. Now the tighter you wrap it around your arm, or the tighter you wrap it around the plastic boxes when you're putting away the tefillin, the sooner this will stretch, and when it stretches, it narrows. And it'll narrow to a point where, like this one is, where it's less than 9 millimeters and you can no longer wear the tefillin. So, very important when you're putting on the tefillin, it should be tight tight enough that it doesn't fall down your arm, but not too tight that it will eventually ruin the Retzuos. If they don't stretch, another thing that they can do is it can start developing cracks along the edges. Can you see that? The cracks over there. And so that's about the wearing of the tefillin. Now also sometimes I see people coming with Retzuos like this where it's actually taped. It's ripped and they're taping it to tape it together. That would not be considered kosher. So if your Retzuos have ripped in a certain spot, then you have to bring them in to be replaced. And that'll also, the tighter you wrap them, the faster they'll rip. Sometimes the Retzuos, they get a little bit worn out. So if it's just in the beginning stages, then what I recommend is you can touch it up with either a pen or the bottle. The bottle is typically better for the Retzuos. It seeps in better versus the marker, which is usually just surface level. It can't really get into all those cracks. Do not use the bottle if you have to touch up the box of the tefillin, the Batim, because it leaves blobs on the tefillin and it doesn't look very pretty. The marker is best for the Batim, and the bottle is best for the Retzuos, although you can use the marker for the Retzuos also, although you won't be able to get in any of the cracks. And I have another video on when can you touch up the Retzuos and when is it time to replace the Retzuos, and I'm going to put a link for that in the description, because sometimes it's beyond the state of painting. Sometimes you have something like this where you can't tell if this is the front or the back of the Retzuos. At that point the marker is not going to help anymore. So watch that other video, you'll get more information and more background information on that. Storing tefillin. If you have a pair of tefillin, let's say somebody in your family passed away and you have a pair of tefillin that nobody's wearing anymore, so the best thing is obviously that the tefillin should be put into use. It shouldn't sit there, because what happens is when the tefillin sit in one place, they get stale, and the longer they sit there, the worse off they'll be. I've had people bring in tefillin that were not worn for many years and they look beautiful, and then as soon as I started to unwind the straps, instead of bending, they actually snapped, it cracked. And then when I take the tefillin out of the plastic casing, a lot of times I'll find the bottom, they dried out and the paint is crumbling, and I'll show you an example of what that looks like. Here you can see the paint on the bottom is just crumbling all over the place. And my hand, as you can see there, it's just completely dried out. So, and to refurbish this is quite expensive, and it's something which could be prevented. So if you do have to have a tefillin sit for a certain period of time, take it out every once in a while, put them on, wear them. When you're storing them, make sure you store them in a environment that you'll be comfortable in. Don't put them in the attic where it's musty. Don't put them in the basement where it's humid. You know, keep them in a good place in the house. Put it in a Ziploc or a double Ziploc bag to make sure that they don't get, the air doesn't make them any more stale. And keep them over there while the time they're not using them. But again, make sure you try to use them every now and then, because when you use something, it tends to last longer than if it sits there. It's true with cars, it's true with anything. And lastly, checking your tefillin regularly. Some people check the tefillin yearly. I recommend at least to have the tefillin checked every 5 to 7 years. The reason for this is, as I explained in other videos, and I'll definitely put a link in the description, but suffice it to say that there are small problems that could develop with time, and if the tefillin are checked regularly and caught in time, I can make corrections to either the Batim, the Parashiyos, or the Retzuos. If the tefillin, however, go for an extended period of time and not being checked, those problems, unfortunately, many times gets to a point where it can no longer be corrected and have to actually be changed, either new Batim, new Parashiyos, or Retzuos. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how to properly take care of your tefillin. If you like this video, if you learned something, please subscribe. The more subscribers I have on the channel, the more it encourages me to make these kind of videos, and it's for the benefit of everybody. So if you haven't yet, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Share it on your shul chat. I mean, who doesn't even know how to take care of their tefillin? Alright, stay tuned for the next video. Take care.